Hey everyone, it's Ardith, and today's video shows some tips for making multiple cards in a different way than I usually use. Today I'm collaborating with Alicia, Call Me Crafty Al, and we each chose something that inspired us from each other's YouTube channel. I chose her sheetload of cards idea, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute. These cards needed two 12 by 12 inch pieces of pattern paper, and I thought it would be fun to try and make my own with my new Memory MISTI. That's the Big Mama MISTI. So now I'll show you how I did it. Stick around and I'll tell you how to adapt it for your original MISTI or even your mini MISTI. So here's the July 2019 Sheetload of Cards PDF. The first page has an image of the card itself with all the pieces labeled. On the right-hand side of the sheet, there's a list of all the paper you need to make 12 cards. It also has the recipe so you can make just one card if you want. And it has ideas for alternatives for the recipe. It's super clever. The next page shows all the pieces you need and how to cut them. I love that Alicia has done all that math to maximize the number of cards you can make. This made it really easy and quick. Okay, so here's my Memory MISTI. This is the first time I'm using it, and it's just over 12 by 12 inches. My idea was that I would use a 6 by 6 inch stamp to create an all-over background by turning the paper each time I stamped it. My first discovery was that this woven stripe background stamp from Concord and 9th is a little smaller than 6 by 6, so I needed to move it in from the corner to get a continuous pattern. I used the markings on the side of the MISTI at 6 inches, and then I put my 12 by 12 white cardstock in. I used Shea Butter ink from Catherine Pooler Designs, which is a soft, pretty yellow. I stamped it down, and then I turned my cardstock and stamped it again. You'll notice as I go through this process that these are not the bright colors that I normally use. That's because these 12 cards are going to a local nursing home on Mother's Day. Our church ladies group figured that there are a lot of women there who won't get visitors on Mother's Day, so we're taking some paper flowers as well as cards. I'll be taking Mother's Day cards and thinking of you cards for all the residents, and lots of thank you cards for the staff as well. We want everyone there to have a card to know that we're thinking of them. So once I stamped it 4 times, then I turned the stamp itself. I took a minute to figure out that I wanted the lines to line up to create a plaid. Then I stamped it again, turning it again 4 times to cover the cardstock. Okay, so now I have this kind of plaid. You can see that I didn't get my spacing exactly perfect, so I thought of a way to make it better. I lined up the stamp again, offsetting it so the lines are in the white spaces on the paper this time. I could have stamped it with the yellow ink again, but I decided to use It's a Boy ink for some more interest. I turned the paper and stamped it 4 times, and then I turned the stamp again and finished off the plaid. The result has kind of a distressed look, and it's not exactly perfect, especially along those center lines, but this one is going to be cut up into strips, so no one will ever know. I needed a second piece of 12 by 12 inch paper, so I got out the polka dot Turnabout stamp from Concord and 9th. This time I only stamped it 4 times, and I left the dots widely spaced. You could do the full Turnabout if you want, but I had different plans. I got out this Lawn Fawn Fab Flowers set, and I chose the tiny solid flower. I used the dots as flower centers, and I randomly stamped the flower all over the page. I left the cardstock in the MISTI. It has a nice soft surface that's perfect for stamping. Then I went back in and I did the same thing, but with It's a Girl ink this time, just trying to space them somewhat evenly over the page. Finally, I grabbed the little leaf stamp, and I used Garden Party ink. This took me a little longer because I wanted to turn the leaves so they weren't always in one direction. But what an easy way to create a big field of flowers. This method will also work with your original MISTI and a 6-inch square of cardstock. You'd need a smaller background stamp, 3 by 3 inches, but the idea would work exactly the same way. And it'll even work in your mini MISTI with a 4 1/4 inch square of paper. There are lots of stamp sets around that have small background type patterns that you can use. So what followed all this stamping was a whole lot of cutting, and I won't show you all of that, but having Alicia's sheetload directions made it really easy to be sure that I have all the right measurements. I checked everything to be sure that I had it all at hand, ready to be assembled. The only thing that differed was that because my stamping didn't go to the edges of my 12 by 12 inch cardstock, I ended up with only 11 cards rather than 12. This last white piece is where I'll stamp my sentiment. I used my mini MISTI this time and the Happy Words stamp set from Concord and 9th. It has a lovely big script Happy and little text Mother's Day, so I can stamp the Happy in blue and the Mother's Day in gray. Keeping my intended recipients in mind, I wanted the sentiment to be very legible. And now I'm ready to assemble. I figured it would be easiest to put adhesive all over the card front rather than on the backs of each piece. Then I used the corner of my score buddy to help me place the strips down right along the edge of the card. MISTI's work well for this too. I used the score buddy again to help me measure where the yellow cardstock went, and then I just put the flowered pieces down by kind of eyeballing the border around them. And then it was back to the score buddy to put the sentiment strip on the yellow mat. That lined up one edge and also showed me where the 1/8 inch mark was so that it would be even on top and bottom. I continued on and assembled all 11 of my cards, and then I felt it needed an embellishment of some sort. I got out the Essentials by Ellen Everyday Doodles set, and I chose this little butterfly. No coloring required because there's a solid and an outline stamp included. And let me show you how I made the stamping even quicker. I cut 11 white butterflies, and then I cut 2 out from gray cardstock. That will be my template. I lined up the 2 stamps in the holes in the gray cardstock, and then I put 2 white die cuts in. I inked up the solid stamp with the yellow ink and the outline stamp with the gray, and I stamped them both at the same time. Then I switched the die cuts, inked it up again, stamped again, and 2 butterflies are done. I used slivers of foam tape to pop the butterflies up on the top corner of the sentiment strip. And I finally went back and added some fairy sugar glitter glue for a bit of sparkle. I hope you enjoyed seeing how Alicia's sheetload of cards works. If you make multiples, this is a great resource. She does a new layout each month, so there's lots of options. Be sure to use the link below to check out her channel, and especially her video for today, where she was inspired by one of my recent technique videos. Supplies are listed below and also on my blog. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.